Welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisin, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And I want to thank all of my listeners who come from around the world to listen to the words of wisdom from our authors. And I'm especially privileged today. Joining us from South Carolina is a woman by the name of Jen Robertson. And Jen has a new book coming out actually in November. But we're going to be speaking to her today about her story from immigrant housemaid to Harvard PhD. She really does have a fascinating story. Well, good day to you, Jen. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you.
Well, we appreciate having you on Inside Personal Growth and for you to tell your story and to impart some wisdom for our listeners. Now, I always, Jen, like to let our listeners know a little bit about the people that we're speaking with, the authors and so on. She is Korea's most popular motivational, inspirational speaker. She's delivered over 500 speeches in less than 4 years and a best-selling author of books chronicling her amazing story that has sold more than 500,000 copies. Currently, she's preparing to publish her best-selling autobiography and pieces of her story and pursuing her motivational speaking activities in English to inspire and motivate billions of people in the U.S., Japan, and other countries in the world. Well, Jen, you certainly have just an amazing story. Your personal story from housemaid to Harvard PhD is one that I think any one of our listeners wants to know a little bit more about. Can you tell us about, to the listeners, kind of the lessons on your journey and the journey that you've taken to get from this Korean woman who came here with less than $100 and then basically became a housemaid and went into the army and then became this PhD?
Yeah, I would love to. And actually, the lesson I learned from my own life story is that we have a choice. That we don't have a choice when we were born because we cannot choose whether we're going to be born as a woman or man or, any kind of, what kind of a background you want to born. And we have no choice from dying. We're all going to die. And we have only one life to live, but we do have a choice of how to live the, one life given to us. And that's the most exciting part. And you don't have to be born with money or power to have your own choice, fate. You've got all the things it takes really, and just to learn to use whatever you have as with, creativity and the revolutionary ideas and utilize the power of imagination. And I realized it later, but the imagination is the vision actually. So this is the most exciting part. And simply you can say that I came to America as a housemaid and became a PhD. But in between those lives, I was a battered wife, and not to become a murderer, I became a licensed killer, joined the U.S. Army, became a soldier, and a single mom who raised a daughter to graduate from Harvard and get a presidential scholar from the President Clinton. And she's a major in the U.S. Army. And there are just tons of, obstacles I faced, but I overcame, and that was amazing joy, and life is such a fun.
Well, let me ask you this, because, in the Korean culture, people in the U.S. would probably like to know more. And I think that you find a lot of achievers in various cultures. It doesn't matter if we're Caucasian and we're in the U.S., or we're Korean, or we're black, or whatever our nationality is. It doesn't matter, no matter our creed or our color. So based on that, how did the culture that you were brought up in actually inspire you or encourage you? And do you think that was a factor? So that's the first part. And then the second factor is, who along your way helped you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the culture, the place I was born in Korea, that's Confucian, very conservative culture where, treat the woman a lower class than male. And actually, I utilized all those negative situations, turned it around to be the positive one, and that generated amazing power. Let's say, I was born into a very poor family where my mom discriminated against the woman herself, and she already set the fate for me to graduate from elementary school and do all the work at home, learn how to be a docile housewife, and marry off with the man they will select from. And my sister followed that route, and she became so miserable. And I utilized my laziness. You have to be very good at doing the housework to enjoy it, but I wasn't good at it at all. And I was a chicken, I was a coward. So I couldn't fight back, and a lot of people who fought back, and they ended up in jail. But I promised to myself, I am going to help myself, because it wasn't my fault to be born as a woman at the bottom of the society. So from that on, I looked around and I utilized even for anger, rebellion, that became like a nuclear energy, and got me going not to give up in any kind of obstacles. And also that because of that rebellion gave me the dream that I want to become successful, and I want to become like Robin Hood to help the people, at the defenseless people like that. So those kind of dreams became a kind of a guiding light for me to keep on going, and that gave me a joy even in the middle of the amazing difficult time or depression, that in the future I'm gonna save tons of people from the depression or from committing suicide or any of those nature. So that really, it doesn't matter what kind of culture you are born, and those cultures can, if you look at them, as I said before, creativity, revolutionary ideas, and power of imagination, you can find amazing power. That's what helped me to reach to here. And even now, when I give speeches, I tell them, my mom probably was the best contributor for my success, because if she didn't put me into the miserable, daily life, probably I would have just become mediocre, or someone who will just cruise through the life and die, But because she put me through that such a difficult time and stirred up my anger and rebellion, that got me so determined to succeed, and I did. And now my mom's hero is me. So she helped me.
So you're telling our listeners that your anger and rebellion was the instrument that propelled you to want to get yourself out of the circumstances you were in and put yourself in different circumstances, more favorable circumstances. So tell our listeners, from that propulsion point, in other words, that point where you propelled inside to get out of this and say, okay, this is not where I want to be. And now that you've moved into this new area, what did it allow you to do as far as creativity and imagination and dreaming? Because obviously you dreamed then to get out, and now you're dreaming for bigger, better things for yourself, right?
Yes. And I usually tell that anger and rebellion, that could be like a nuclear resource. And if you utilize badly, then that becomes explosive and that's destructive. But if you utilize it positively, that gives you the energy of what you are set to go. So I utilize that a lot. And at the same time that, when I was, my hard time at home started when I was sixth grader. And my sister got married off, and we have 2 daughters and 4 sons in our family. And so when she put me to do all those hard housework from the 5 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock, I wanted to fight back, but I couldn't because I was scared. And, my mom would beat you up in a heartbeat if you rebel. So I swore to myself, someday I will become like a Robin Hood, someone like that. And to do that, I need power. And so I said, well, what would get me the power? And I didn't know what, so I asked my teacher, what would be would give me success? And he said that become a PhD. So that dream of becoming a PhD started at the sixth grader. And before then, I used to be the bottom of the class, number one from the bottom. But once I have that objective and I had the passion, I started studying and I became a genius of studying. And I reached the top level of my class. Excuse me, I get so excited, I guess. But anyway, so that set the pace of my path. And so I'm here now, and then that creativity is like utilizing your anger, rebellion, and you can use that to help you not to give up in that kind of area. And also that in the imagination, I whenever I feel depressed and felt lost, and in my imagination, I visioned that I came home as Robin Hood or the PhD, and people. I was helping the people rising out of that poverty, and then. So it was just giving me amazing feelings not to give up. So I was using both carrot and the stick in my path. And then after I became famous, that in Korea I'm a celebrity, and some people who were ready to kill her children, 2 children, and herself because her husband passed away and she just couldn't make a living. But she decided to leave because of my story. And also even in America, when I gave a talk to the students at Cambridge College who were supported by the welfare, and they swore to me they're going to get out of this welfare situation. Because if I made it, I came to America as a housemaid, not speaking English, $100. If you made it to, become a PhD from Harvard and send your daughter to Harvard, there's no reason for us to not to, because they were born into, English is their first language. So I might have saved some listeners' taxpayer money.
Well, let me ask you this,
people.
because I think there's many listeners out there that would probably say, well, Jen, along the course of this journey, you had to face fear straight on. There had to be so many times in your life where you were fearful. I mean, you had $100. You didn't have a lot of security. Talk to our listeners about where security came from for you. How did you find this just internal sense of security, not looking toward the outside world? Because for someone like yourself, who's attained this level of success and stature in society, had to find that drive from within, right?
Yes. First thing I did was I looked at my situation objectively. And as I said before, it wasn't my choice to be born as a woman at the bottom of the society. Yet I had to face that, amazing storm of life. And then that stirred the sympathy to that poor little girl who had to go through all those life alone. And I decided to help her. Even I realized that later, the person who can bring the most power to yourself is yourself. There's anyone more powerful than you about your fate and your life and your whatever dream it is. So that's what I discovered. So whenever I feel that, so down and let down, and then there's another voice of me inside telling me, I will help you, Jim. No matter even the whole world just to desert you, leave you, and give you a hard time, I'm going to be standing next to you, and I will help you.